Teen killer makes statement that will cost him his life. These haunting words were spoken by a 12-year-old boy named Daniel James Beaver, desperately seeking help from the police to rescue him from his two older brothers. The siblings were wreaking havoc inside their home, ruthlessly taking lives. However, mere moments into the distressing phone call, Daniel's pleas turned into screams of terror until the connection abruptly ended. Swiftly responding to the call, the police arrived at the location and were confronted with a gruesome sight that unfolded throughout the entire house. Traces of blood adorned the porch, while a faint cry for assistance emanated from within. The plea originated from Crystal Beaver, a 13-year-old girl, as everyone else in the household, with the exception of 2-year-old Autumn, had tragically perished. Officers of the law were notified of a disturbance in the area surrounding the building's rear entrance, and when they arrived, they spoke with two males called Robert and Michael Beaver. It seemed as though the culprits were covered in blood, and they were grinning in an unpleasant way that gave off the impression that they took pleasure in their acts. Particularly disturbing was Robert's assertion, which he stated while smiling, which was that the fact that he had taken the lives of several people had raised him to the position of a god. The tape of Robert's questioning, which was unfortunately never made available to the broader public, is regrettable. However, the entire availability of the interrogation recording of 15-year-old Michael gives vital insights into the underlying motives that motivated these adolescents to do such a horrible deed. Michael was one of the 3 teenagers responsible for the murders. In Robert's room, we found a variety of weapons and protective gear, such as machetes, hunting knives, and daggers. It became clear that they had been amassing these artifacts for a considerable amount of time prior to this point. Surprisingly, when their sister Crystal contacted their mother about it, she brushed it off as ordinary behavior, attributing it to males being boys and brushing off any worries. This careless response, on the other hand, could not have been more inappropriate. Even though the discovery of firearms, knives, and machetes was unsettling, the discovery of several firearms and a cache containing more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition raised a sense of unease to an altogether new and distinct level. They were aware of this fact, and as a result, they devised a plan to guarantee that their parents were out of the house when this delivery came to their property. The issue of why such a large arsenal was required to accomplish a certain goal remained unanswered. After all, there is no need for 1,000 different bullets in order to take out 5 different people. As it turned out, the brothers were hatching a plot that was far more sinister and expansive. The 2 young lads would regularly remain up until late in the night, engage in in-depth discourse, and devise complex strategies. It was during one of these discussions that they became mindful of their common interest in murder, notwithstanding the way that every one of them had fostered this interest autonomously. At the point when they at last grappled with this reality, they were sure in their conviction that there was no spot for one or the other, uncertainty or retreat, in the arrangement that they had concocted. The siblings had become near each other throughout their experience growing up, to a great extent because of the troublesome everyday environments where they had spent their early stages. Their parents, April and David Beaver, acted in a manner that may be characterized as abusive towards their own children to a certain degree. Because of the way that the young men were self-taught and were not allowed to cooperate with young people who didn't have a place with their own families, they found that they invested a lot of energy pondering their very own encounters. As a consequence of this, their views of the world were the only thing that molded their perspective of the wider world. This warped view ultimately led to them having a fundamental scorn for society, which served as the incentive behind the second phase of their scheme. Ultimately, this skewed perspective caused them to have a profound disdain for society. Their plan was well-defined and well-established. Michael boldly said that they planned to dismember their family members' bodies and hide the parts in containers while they remained in their makeshift camp and awaited the arrival of weaponry. Michael was certain that they would carry out their plan. He then made the unsettling admission that even though they temporarily saved Autumn's life, they had always intended to behead her with an axe at some point in the future. However, as the course of events would have it, these intricate plans failed from the very beginning. What exactly transpired on that calamitous evening that brought about the downfall of their well-prepared scheme? At 11:30 p.m. on July 22, 2015, Crystal's unannounced entry into their quarters marked the beginning of the sequence of killings that were to follow. She was shocked to find them outfitting themselves with body armor and blades before beginning their preparations. Michael used his cleverness to lure her towards his computer, where Robert was waiting to conduct a rapid and devastating deed by slicing her throat from behind. Both of these moves contributed to her death. Even when Crystal found the fortitude to get to her feet and make a last-ditch effort to escape, Michael immediately gave chase to her and dragged her back inside the house by her hair. Because their parents had passed away, and because Crystal's lifeblood was gushing out onto the porch, the 3 eldest members of the family were rendered unable to move or speak. They made a conscious decision to spare their 4 younger siblings because they believed that they would put up the least amount of opposition. At this point, we pick up the story from where we are left off earlier, and we find Daniel hidden in his room as he is on the phone with the authorities. After that, Daniel was also a victim of a vicious stabbing, and he had 21 wounds across his back, shoulder, and chest as a result of the attack. The final 2 victims met their awful end while hiding behind locked cells. However, Michael deftly manipulated their view and successfully convinced them that Robert constituted a threat not only to Robert's life but also to Michael's. This devious plan was effective in luring them out of their isolation, which led to the vicious assault that finally resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent children, Christopher age 6 and Victoria age 5. Throughout the entirety of the conversation, Michael had repeatedly pointed a substantial chunk of culpability in the direction of Robert. He even goes so far as to state that he did nothing more than observe as Robert carried out all the chores, emphasizing that his involvement solely sprang from his prediction of Robert's goals and a desire to preserve a healthy relationship with him. Regrettably, throughout his interrogation, Robert did not show any reluctance in disclosing the unvarnished truth, which finally provided the police with a vital signal that Michael's role may have been bigger than first reported. This kind of forthrightness is typically effective, and it prompted Michael to ultimately reveal his considerable participation in the killings, matching Robert's degree of responsibility. Michael admitted to slitting the throats of Crystal and his mother, in addition to admitting that he fatally stabbed Christopher. He also acknowledged severing the necks of Christopher. One admission naturally led to another, which resulted in greater comprehension of the psychological intricacies shown by these troubled adolescents. It is now abundantly clear that the individuals responsible for these murders were not motivated in any way by any kind of personal vendetta. Rather, their actions were driven simply by a desire for public attention and renown. The inquiry into the house revealed storage devices containing their detailed methods as well as mobile surveillance cameras, which brought this reality into ever greater clarity as the investigation progressed. In a further confession, Robert revealed that they intended to construct a pair of movies, one of which would be targeted at inciting the authorities, and the other of which would be uploaded to the internet. The remaining portions of Michael's interview footage capture him engaged in the process of drafting a statement which regrettably was never disseminated to the public. The contents of this written piece seem to have been rather disturbing, given that the overseeing detective could not bring himself to complete its reading, prompting a noticeable reaction. Naturally, during the trial, both individuals faced considerable adversity. Despite Michael's endeavor to assert a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, the outcome proved unfavorable for both him and his companion, resulting in the imposition of 5 lifelong sentences without the prospect of parole. Crystal and Autumn, the 2 surviving children, were taken in by a loving couple. However, it is an undeniable truth that this once sizable but secluded family now exists only as a dark tale that haunts the thoughts of all the residents in the once serene community of Broken Arrow. That's going to wrap up today's video. We hope you enjoyed this tale that we shared with you. Let us know your thoughts about it in the comment section below, and make sure you stay tuned to our channel for more updates soon. Make sure you press the notification bell and you'll be updated when we have a new upload for you. Thanks for watching.